What a service so far, and the best part's yet to come. We're going to introduce our speaker for this morning, and I'm not going to say he's going to preach, because anytime I had ever been asked to come and talk anywhere, the preacher, inevitably at some point the preacher would say, if it's on Sunday morning, now we're excited you're going to come up and preach. Now, I don't know if Jordan's going to preach, but that used to terrify me when I do that. Somebody say, he's going to come up and preach, and I say, I'm not a preacher. Now, Jordan's a lot of things, and the Lord has worked in his life in amazing ways. And I'm not going to steal any of his thunder and tell any of the specific things that he'll probably talk about today. But if you ever get the opportunity and are blessed enough to know Jordo, it's somebody that you'll never forget. And it's somebody that if you become close to him, he's one of those folks that you could call him at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm broke down on the interstate, can you come and help me? And he's not going to say, can you call somebody else? He'll say, I'll be there in a few minutes. He does all kinds of service work. He is very giving of himself. He's in the healthcare industry, and he gives back to his community as the community is given to him. And Jordan, we are blessed and excited to have you here at Valley View. Brother, come on up and tell us what the Lord's done in your life.
Got to do a little rearrangement here for just a second. All right, Jimmy, thank you, brother. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan Ownby, and I was born and raised right here in Warrens Valley. Grew up not even a mile up the road here, and grew up here in this church. It'd be foolish of me this morning to have the opportunity to be up here and not take just a second to really thank this church just for supporting me and my family, and raising me and my brothers, and just loving us the way that you all have. It means the world to me. I can't honestly put it into words, but so thank you. Pastor, thank you for this opportunity. It's nothing short of an honor to be standing up here this morning in front of my friends and family, and all those who again love me. So thank you for this opportunity. As Pastor Preston asked me several months ago now if I would speak this morning, admittedly I told him, give me a couple days, a little time to think about it. And as I thought about it and prayed about it for a couple days, it didn't take the Lord long to show me that yes, this is something that I want you to do. And as I began to think about and pray on what would I speak on this morning, again, it didn't take long. God had showed me, that I had a passion for His people, and that I had a good story to tell, and it was because of Him. So that's what I'm going to do. I love talking about Jesus and what He's done in my life. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Some of the things He has done, some of the things that He is continuing to do, and some things that I'm sure that He'll do in my life moving forward. I'm going to try to focus in just on one short verse of scripture here this morning. And it comes from Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. And it says, I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. I'd like to ask Brother Kevin Daniels, would you open us up in prayer quick?
Heavenly Father, thank you, dear Lord, for Jordan and what He means to us as individuals in the church. Thank you, dear Lord, for the message you've given Him to bring to us, dear Lord. We pray that we use it. Convict us with it, dear Lord, and bless us in Jesus' name.
Thank you, brother. You'll never live. You'll never breathe right. Never feed yourself. Never be able to walk. You'll never be able to learn things. You'll never be able to drive a vehicle. You're too small. You can't do it. You'll never make it. And you're not good enough. Those are all things that I've been told my entire life. You see, when I was born in December of 1992, the doctors had told my parents that their baby had some things wrong. And in fact, there were so many things wrong that they eventually tried to convince my parents to terminate their pregnancy. And obviously they didn't do that, and I guess I'm kind of glad that they chose not to. but I just can't imagine thinking back of what my parents must have been feeling, and the faith that they must have had to have in God, and the trust that they had in Him to realize that with Him, all things are possible. As got a little closer to my due date, parents began to tell my doctors the things that if he lived at all, that he would never be able to do. And I was born. 1 year passed, 2 years passed, 3 years passed, and eventually started kindergarten up the road here at Warewood. And eventually, one by one, my parents tell me I began to be able to do the things that the doctors told them that I would never be able to do. See, I didn't realize it at the time, being at 5 years old, but God was in control. He always was, and He always is. At 5 years old, my parents came to me and told me that I had to have surgery. They didn't even know what surgery was. All I remember is that I would wake up hurting, and after a while we would go through the rehab process, and that things would eventually be better than they are now. So parents decided that it was time to do the surgery, so we drove to Lexington, Kentucky to the Shriners Hospital and had my surgery. They tried to insert hardware, plates basically, into my hips to try to straighten the hips out. It was a hard process, even at 5 years old. It was more confusion, didn't understand any of it, a lot more questions than answers. But anyway, I did the rehab and was back to normal, whatever you might consider normal would be for me. A year later, at about 6 years old, the surgery, the plates weren't taking effect. It was deemed unsuccessful. And therefore, we had to go back in and take those plates and that hardware out. And at 6 years old, I really had no idea why this had happened to me. All I knew that is I was different from other children, other people my age. I was never really treated any differently in my own house or around the kids that were my age. But I just didn't quite understand. And admittedly, sometimes I still don't. We went ahead and done the second surgery, and rehab from that. And my life had begun to get about as normal as it would ever get over the next few years. I'm going to skip forward to about the 4th grade. And I began to play basketball here at Warewood. Now, don't get me wrong, I was terrible at basketball. Terrible. Still am. But as I began to think back, and still to this day, I think back and realize that I wasn't given a chance to live. Okay? Well, I lived. Then it was, he'll never walk. Not only do I walk, I play basketball. You know? And that just was the first time that I really realized how awesome God is and what He means to me in my life. We were always brought here to church my entire life, every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Every time the doors were open, we were here. And my mother brought us all to church, and that's something that I can't state how thankful that I am that she did that. But I remember one particular Sunday night. We're sitting back here in the corner where we had always sat, and it's Pastor Jeff Hickman at the time. He came to my mom before service, and he said, when we dismiss to our classes, I want to see Jordan back here in my office. So we came in, sang the song, prayed the prayer, and everybody kind of went their separate ways to the classrooms. And as I began to go down the steps here, I remembered, hey, Jeff wants to see me. So walked into his office, which is back here on the left, going out, and I knocked on the door. He was already sitting in his office there, and he said, come in, Jordan, shut the door. Right then, I knew what that was about. My heart started pounding, started racing, and he sat me down. We began to talk a few minutes, and about some of the things that God was doing in my life, had done, and He continued to share with me that the Lord had really put it on His heart to reach out to me, and that He loved me, and His church loved me, and that they would support me in anything that I ever decided to do. And as we talked for a few more minutes, he finally just came out and said it. He said, "Jordan, do you want to accept Christ into your life?" And I said, yes, sir, I sure do. And he said, "Okay, well, when we go back into our service this evening, we'll pray, have the invitations." I said, "Jeff, no, I want to do it right now." So we huddled together, and right back here in this office, we began to pray. And right back here in the little pastor's office, I gave my life to Jesus Christ and became a Christian.
Amen.
The next couple of years were again kind of just normal, getting back to being Jordan a little bit. And it was probably about the summer of 6th, 7th grade. I remember really well, really vividly that that was an exciting time in my life for one particular reason. That was I was finally old enough to join the youth group here at church. See, I had an older brother who was in the youth group already, and I remember hearing about all these awesome stories about getting to go places and do things and experience new things that I had never got to experience before. I was excited and I was ready for missions. At least I thought I was. See, God uses He used missions to open up so many doors for me. Still is continuously. I remember my first mission trip. Kevin and April took us to Panama City Beach, Florida, to a camp called Centrifuge. And my life would literally never be the same again. It was such a week filled with teenagers doing nothing but loving on Jesus. And that was something that I would just never forget. And to this day, there's nothing more precious to me than seeing young people with hearts for God. Disaster relief is something that missions has opened a door for me to be able to be involved in. I'm currently still involved with a disaster relief organization called Mission North America, which I love spending any free time that I get, which is not much, but free time with them, trying to help out in some capacity. Let's get forward here to, I was 17, 18 years old. I was getting ready to finish up high school, and that's when I really felt the devil sort of attacking me emotionally and spiritually for the first time. I had moved from Wares Valley, which was the only place that I had ever called home. There were just so many changes going on in my life all at once. I remember particularly one Saturday morning, would have been December of 2011. It was really early in the morning, about 7 a.m. I hadn't slept at all the night before due to the storms that had came through. And my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was my mom. She began to inform me that she wanted me to gather all my brothers and that she had something she wanted to talk to us about. And I remember saying at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, I said, how much worse can this day get? And I learned a really hard lesson right then and there, that it got way, way worse very fast. So as I gathered my brothers and we went into the room, Mom was already sitting down. And you just get the feeling that you just walk into a room or pick up the phone and you just know something's not right. This isn't good. We knew that Mom had been to the doctors quite a bit recently, but we really didn't understand the full reason why. As we sat down, Mom began to tell my brothers and I that she had been diagnosed with cancer in her abdomen. She wanted to be upfront with us that this was going to be hard. It's not an easy task that we have in front of us. she continued to inform us that she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in her appendix. And usually at that time, when the doctor had told her that when someone comes into their office with that condition and in that shape, they usually advise them that they have 3-4 weeks to live. My mother was adamant about 2 things. One was that she had no expiration date. And 2 is that God was in control. No matter what happened, we were going to trust Him and lean on the fact that we knew that He was in control. As she finished up her little talk there, we all kind of went our separate ways to kind of digest what we had just learned. And, I was in shock. I was confused. I was downright mad at God, not knowing why this had happened. I remember saying, haven't we been through enough? And I couldn't possibly imagine what good could come out of this. So we were just days away from Mom's next doctor's appointment. That's when I made the decision that I would back out of my freshman year in college and spend all my time trying to help her, focus on being her caregiver. It was quickly decided that Mom needed surgery at UT here in Knoxville to help buy us some more time. And I remember after her first surgery that we were having her trouble getting her pain under control. It was about 3:30 one morning. We sat there. We hadn't slept. She or I, neither one, had slept in over 48 hours. But, the doctor had came in and decided that it was best if we moved her to the intensive care unit downstairs. And as they ushered Mom off into the intensive care unit to admit her, they moved me into a little family waiting area. And just remember that was a really, at 3:30 a.m., that was a really cold, really dark, and just scary, silent place. As I sat there all by myself, I began to cry, weeping, really, crying out to God and saying, Father, I don't know what's going to happen. See, I wasn't afraid of what had happened with Mom. I was afraid of what I didn't know was going to happen. What was going to happen to her? What was going to happen to me? What was going to happen to my family? I had no idea. See, I didn't trust God until I literally had no other choice. And I remember praying to God right there in the middle of the hospital, Lord, I'm sorry we didn't trust you with this. I didn't trust you with this. I don't know why I ever thought that we could get through this without you. For the first time in my life, I had felt flattened and just downright defeated. I felt useless. Slowly but surely, I began to trust God, and over time began to see how things would work out according to His plan. After a few days, Mom had begun to sort of turn the corner and get better. And she was moved into a regular hospital room. And then 14 days later, she was discharged home. We got to go home. The next couple years of my life were filled with chemotherapy treatments, doctor visits, staying in and out of the hospital for days and weeks at a time. UT Medical Center had become a regular part of my life. And in fact, I was on a first-name basis with a large part of the staff at the hospital. Mom never set foot in that building when I wasn't right by her side. Through all the visits, stays, and treatments, I never left. But how much more true is it that God never leaves our side? No matter what we're dealing with, no matter what is going on in our lives. The Bible said that God has gone before us and He is with us. He never leaves us, He'll never forsake us. Amen. At one point it was determined that the doctors had exhausted all their options with Mom's care. And eventually we were discharged home with hospice care. Mom continued to fight her battle for almost another year, until ultimately, in 2016, she passed away. That was the single hardest year of my life. See, the help that she needed, the help that I gave, the medicine, the administrations, the round-the-clock care, that was hard. It was sleep-deprived work. But what made it the hardest time of my life wasn't any of those things. It was knowing that we were fighting a losing battle. I knew that I had to continue to help care for Mom. But knowing that this is something that would ultimately end up taking her life made me have that same defeated feeling again. The more I thought about it, the more I questioned God. Why her? Why us? How does something like this happen? How does God let something like this happen to people who loved Him so much? I remember saying through the whole thing that I wanted God's will to be done. That was my purpose. But I'm really not sure I believed it in my heart. I knew it was the right thing to say, and I wanted to believe it, but I'm really not sure that I fully trusted Him. See, in the end, that's exactly what had happened, though. I didn't see the forest for the trees, if you will. Mom's passing was God's will all along, and the influence and the impact that she had on other people, that's what kept that from being a losing battle. The relationships that grew out of her fight, the relationship that was strengthened between her and I, that's what made it not a losing battle. My mom reminded me how to fight, how to carry on, how to encourage, inspire, and love other people when she was at her absolute lowest point. She was given 3.5 to 4 weeks to live, and she fought that for 4.5 years by trusting God and knowing that with Him, all things are possible. See, if God can take a person after they've been given 4 weeks to live, and He can help them fight that for almost 5 years, what can He do in your life this morning?
Amen.
After Mom had passed away, I spent the next few months just really trying to get back to being Jordan and trying to learn and figure out which direction God had me going next. Again, God had showed me all along, but I didn't realize it at the time. Again, I couldn't see the forest for the trees. He had showed me all along that I was good at certain things. I was good at medicine. I had such a compassion in my heart for caring for other people. I just didn't realize it until He was ready for me to see it. His timing is ultimately perfect. So when you have those skills and those gifts, what would any normal person do? They would enroll themselves in nursing school. Sounded like a good idea at the time, anyway. See, nursing school was hard. It was a hard year for me, and I say year because I was able to complete an accelerated program that covered 4 years of nursing school material in just over 12 months. I was able to draw from my life experiences myself and my experiences with my mom to help me get through nursing school. Let's skip ahead here to 2018. All that had kind of settled down. I had graduated nursing school. I got a good job here in Sevier County. And I noticed I'd started to experience more pain myself in my knees and my hips and my back. And so after a couple visits with my doctor, it was decided that I needed to see a specialist. So we went to an orthopedic specialist or a bone doctor in Lexington, Kentucky. I remember driving up the night before. My dad and I went up there, and was pretty nervous. Didn't really know what to expect. Was just hoping to have some kind of relief from this. As I took what seemed like 1,000 x-rays and waited what seemed like hours to see this guy, he came in, he introduced himself, and he said that he didn't know how to help me. He would look at my x-rays, look at me, glance over the chart, look back at me, and said, "Jordan, I can't help you." I felt that same defeated feeling yet again. This guy was the specialist. He didn't know how to help me. He didn't have any plans for my help. I didn't know where else to turn. We began to talk, and a few minutes later, he said that he might know somebody who could help me. I said, "Well, I'm all ears. What do you got?" We began to talk a little bit more, and a couple months later, I found myself, along with a good buddy of mine who's with us this morning, we found ourselves on an airplane flying halfway across the country to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. You talk about nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was nervous to see this new doctor. I didn't have any idea what he could possibly tell me. If the specialist didn't know, what could this guy say? How was he going to help me? What were we even doing? I just assumed it would be another, "Can't help you, kid. Go home and figure it out." As the day finally arrived for my doctor's appointment, we sat there what seemed like hours and hours, and took what seemed like thousands of more x-rays. I don't even want to know the amount of radiation I've got going through my body. I was nervous, and again, couldn't hardly understand what this guy could possibly have to offer me. But as he finally came in, he introduced himself, and he began to tell me, we've been talking about my issues, and he began to tell me that I had 2 hips that are dislocated. I have 2 knees that need surgically repaired, and I have a bulging disc in my back. Found out where the pain was coming from. I remember thinking 2 things when he told me that. One thing is that God is awesome. You know, to be able to take somebody who did and still does to this day have 2 dislocated hips and walk around like normal. There's no medical explanation for that. And that's why we give him all the credit. The other thing I remember is making a joke to the doctor. I said, "You know, sir, when I was born, I wasn't given a chance to live. Not only did I live, but then it was, oh, he'll never walk. Not only do I walk, but I play basketball. Terrible at basketball. But I tried. Not only did I walk, but I walk with 2 dislocated hips. And don't tell me God's not real. Don't tell me that there's anything that's impossible without him on your side. When he is where you draw your strength, there truly is nothing impossible.
Yeah.
I remember before we went into the appointment, I said, I don't know what this guy can possibly offer me. He began to tell me that I would need probably 2 to 3 major surgeries to fix me. Each surgery would require at least 6 months to a year worth of rehab. And I wondered how would he help me. I just didn't realize I was looking at another 2 years worth of rehab to get back to normal. I was scared. of what he had told me, and the thought of having to do more surgery. With surgery, there's always more questions than answers, as everyone knows. And I was afraid. I was frightened. Now, I didn't have my Bible with me in Minnesota, but I looked it up on my phone, and I remember as soon as we got back to the hotel, I looked it up. Deuteronomy 31:6 says that, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be terrified. For the Lord your God goes with you. He'll never leave you. He will never forsake you."
Amen.
I really tried to draw on that same night in the intensive care unit throughout all of Mom's struggles and even to this day in my life. See, there's still more questions than answers in my health today. But we're putting surgery off just as long as we possibly can. It's going to have to happen at some point, but I want to push that off as long as possible, because there are more questions than answers. There's more questions than answers, but there's one thing that I do know for 100% fact, and it's that you all will yet again get to see God's strength in my recovery.
Amen.
You all will yet again get to see His power and His will through me. And you all will yet again get to see miracles every time you see me. Every step I take is literally a miracle from God.
Amen.
As we move forward to present day, I continue to work hard at my job. I just recently took a management position at the doctor's office where I work, where I'm in charge of a team of nurses. And continue to work hard with them each and every day, trying to provide care for people in this county. But surgery's coming. And like I said, I just want to put that off as long as I can. But as long as I live, you all will see God in me. When I'm gone and up there with Him, there's one thing. And my prayer is that I pray that it's never forgotten. That people will understand and will truly believe that with Him all things are possible. I just want to leave you with a couple of short illustrations here. It's when you think you're not enough, the mountain is just too large. Maybe the storm in your life has lasted just a little too long, and you feel like giving up. Remember that God uses the weak to lead the strong. He uses the last thing, the last person possible, to do nothing short of the impossible. God is the master of the impossible. If He can take a little boy who wasn't even given a chance to live, and He can use him to overcome every obstacle that's ever been put in front of him, do all that just to show how strong He is and His mighty power, what can He do for you in your life? My friends, my family, have faith, trust God, work hard, and maybe most importantly, love deep. Last thing I'll leave you with is it's the same one who created all things. He created you, He created me. He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows how many drops of water are in the ocean. He knows the exact number of grains of sand on the beach. He knows every blade of grass on the earth and every star in the night sky. The only thing that He wants is you. See, He loves you, He pursues you, and He longs for that relationship with you. Don't deny that. Take it from me, there's nothing more freeing on this earth than trusting God and giving your life to Him. My prayer this morning is that God would speak to us all in some way this morning. And not just that he would speak to us, but that we would have the courage and the trust in him to respond. And that we would truly believe that with him, all things are possible. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to be here with my friends and my family, people who care for me and love me. Father, thank you again for this opportunity. Lord, it's my prayer that we would truly understand and truly have faith enough in you to realize that with you, all things are possible. It doesn't matter what the world tells us or what the world has us going through. You are the master of the impossible. Lord, I pray that we would not be afraid or terrified because we understand that you go with us and you go before us and that you've got it all handled. Father, I love you and I thank you so much for everything that you've given me. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
I believe it's, is it? Just as I am. Jordan, come right here. Hey, I've heard some powerful messages this morning, but Jordan, yours is one that we know well here at Valley View, and for those who are visiting with us, you know his story now, and God is great and God is good. You may be dealing with some issues in your life that a lot of people know about, perhaps no one knows about, but he has made it so clear that in the midst of your pain, your suffering, sorrow, whatever it might be, God is still on his throne. God is great. God is good. You may want to come during this invitation time. Just let Jordan know how much you love him. You may want to come this morning and give your life to the Lord Jesus Christ. As he said a moment ago in his message, you may be wanting to come this morning and just dedicate your life to the Lord. Perhaps he's calling you for something very special. But as we sing, let Jesus have his way in your life this morning, won't you? And please come.